Hey guys, John here. So what I want to do in this video is I want to go through the most common reasons why I see people's Upwork profiles getting rejected and some of the things that you can do to fix those issues so that you can start landing clients on Upwork. And I really believe that these things, if you kind of follow along with the tips that I'm going to give you in this video, you're going to start writing a lot higher quality Upwork proposals. And ultimately, that's what matters when it comes to getting your proposals accepted. You can't control everything. You can't make clients hire you. And sometimes there's certain projects where you're not a good fit, or there's just other freelancers who are better and they're going to be the ones that get hired. But over time, if you consistently create high quality proposals, things are going to sort of tilt and lean in your favor, and you'll eventually start having the success on Upwork that you're after. And so, again, I just want to go through the biggest things that I see holding people back when it comes to their Upwork proposals, and then a bunch of tips for what you can do for each one to get around it or to do it better, etc. So that's what we're going to get into in this video. Let's jump in. Reason number one, lack of experience or skills. So clients are looking for freelancers who have specific experience or skills that match their project requirements. It's not simply enough to have a general understanding of the field or industry, especially when it's really competitive like it is on Upwork, and they're going to have dozens of other proposals and freelancers to look at. They want to see evidence that you have successfully completed similar projects in the past. So, for example, let's say a client is looking for a freelance writer to write articles on cryptocurrency. They're just going to be more likely to choose someone who has specific experience writing about finance, economics, or technology and can demonstrate a solid understanding of the cryptocurrency industry. If you don't have experience in those areas, it's going to be a lot more difficult to convince the client that you're the right person for the job. So, what can you do if you don't have the necessary experience or skills? Well, here's a few tips for getting around lack of experience. First off, you can simply start with smaller, low-paying jobs to build your portfolio and gain that experience. Even if the pay isn't great, the experience and the positive reviews can be valuable later on in your career in securing higher-paying jobs. And clients are going to be a lot more likely to take a chance on someone who's new or inexperienced with a smaller project than they are with a larger project. So it can be a really good way for you to get your foot in the door, freelancing in general, Upwork in general, but also even with that specific client, because if you do a good job on that smaller project, they may have larger projects down the road that they would want to hire you for. So don't be afraid to take those smaller, low-paying jobs at first to help build your portfolio. Your job history reviews on Upwork, treat them like big jobs, and that's how you can build out your job history and your experience on Upwork. You can take courses or earn certifications in the different niches or areas that you want to work in. This can help demonstrate your expertise beyond your portfolio. If you don't have the items in your portfolio, you don't have that experience, the certifications can be a bit of a stand-in for your proposal to help you get clients to maybe take a chance on you. So, for example, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, HubSpot, Hootsuite, and a lot of other companies, they offer certifications specifically for their products. So if you get those certifications, then apply for those kinds of jobs. That certification can help you to get hired for those specific jobs, even if you don't necessarily have a ton of experience or a bunch in your portfolio to back all that up. So that's one way you can kind of work around a lack of experience or skills. You could also, I know this might seem a little counterintuitive, but you could offer to do a test project or sample work for the client in order to demonstrate your abilities to them firsthand so they can see you actually work. This can help build trust and confidence in your skills. I had a client that I worked with that whenever he hired freelancers, he would actually hire 3 of them for the same project, and it would be a smaller project, and he'd hire three different freelancers, and then he would see which one gave him the best work he liked working with, and then he would pick that one and then hire them for the actual bigger project that he wanted them to work on. So instead of waiting for the client to do that, that could be something that you offer to the client. Again, doing that on Upwork is a little tricky, but again, if you're not getting any if you're not getting any of your proposals accepted on Upwork, think outside the box, try creative things. What is there really to lose if you're not getting any work from it anyway? So that could be something that you could look at. Another trick for getting around a lack of experience or skills is to highlight any transferable skills or experiences that might be relevant to the project, even if they're not directly related. So if you have a skill that's close to what the client is after, but it's not exactly it, then you could sort of highlight that in your proposal and kind of make the case for why that skill is transferable to their project. Again, if you don't have the stuff in your portfolio, you don't have the experience, you don't have the job history, you don't have all these other things, you're kind of behind the 8 ball. So you have to be creative and think outside the box, and you have to try to make these cases to clients to get them to hire you. Don't just ignore these obvious glaring issues and hope that the client just out of the goodness of their heart hires you. You need to make a case in your proposal and your cover letter for why they should hire you over someone else. And you can combine these things of, you're going to highlight transferable skills. Maybe you have a certification. It's a lower paying job, etc. You can kind of stack some of these things together to help make the case why a client should hire you, even though you have a lack of experience or maybe don't have the exact skills that they're after. Next up is kind of an obvious and simple one, but it's still important, and that is just simply continuously working on improving your skills and actually gaining the experience that you need so you don't have to worry about this, so that you can get the skills that you're missing. Again, that's kind of obvious, but I want to make sure and put that in there that's really the answer to this at the end of the day. A lot of this is just sort of workarounds until you can get that experience and those skills. So be constantly working on improving your skills and getting the experience you need so that you can just apply for different projects and you don't have to worry about it. Another thing you could do, obviously not on Upwork, but you could offer your services for free. So again, consider offering some of your services to a few clients outside of Upwork, and that can help you get items to put in your portfolio, get reviews that you can put in your proposals or your overview, gain some valuable experience actually working on these kinds of projects and so forth. And again, that can give you something that can help you stand out from all the other freelancers who don't have any of this stuff, and at least get you above that bar. So again, having something is better than nothing, and this is a way that you can get some of that those first few jobs, that early experience to put in your portfolio to help you get around this. Another sort of similar idea is you could volunteer for nonprofit organizations. So they often need help with various tasks such as social media management, content creation, graphic design, web design, etc. And volunteering for these organizations can get you the experience and the skills and the portfolio items and reviews and all that stuff that you need, while also doing it in a way that might resonate with certain clients more and feel better for you because you're giving back to your community. You're not just necessarily doing free work for a friend or family. You're actually giving back to people in need, and that can feel a little bit better. So that's an option that you can do as well in order to get the experience that you need, get the stuff for your portfolio that you need. Another, again, similar idea, you can join online communities related to your area of expertise, and then in those communities offer your services for free or at a discounted rate. That not only can help you to get the experience and the skills and the stuff for your portfolio, but it can also help you to network with other people that are in a similar industry, gain experience, get your name out there, etc. So that can be a good thing to do as well to help you get some of that experience that you need. You can also look for mentorship opportunities in your field. So a mentor, they can provide you with really critical guidance. I've had different mentors for different parts of my career, from web development to marketing to content creation and so on. And every single one of them has given me insights that have made a tremendous difference in my career. So that can really help fast forward the learning process and the gaining of the experience that you need. Guidance, advice, feedback. They can help you develop your skills, tell you what you need to learn, critiques, all of that stuff can help you to improve your skills and get a lot better. They can also help you with the last tip that we'll get to here in a little bit, not the next one, but the very last one. They can help you with that as well, which we'll cover here in just a sec. Another thing you can do is to attend workshops and conferences related to your area of expertise, because those can provide you, again, with the opportunity to network with other professionals and, not only learn about trends and techniques in your field and stay up to date with what's going on, but also potentially land new clients. Oftentimes, meeting someone face to face, those people will kind of set aside having to look at a portfolio or asking about your experience, because they'll judge you based off of the interaction that they have with you. And if that goes well, that could be all you need to get hired, and you don't even need all of the experience and so forth. So again, that's another thing that you can do. We sort of mentioned this a little bit, but you can offer discounted rates to clients who are willing to work with you despite your lack of experience. So that can be a way to gain experience and build your portfolio while also still earning a little bit and not having to do free work. For a lot of Upworkers, a lot of freelancers, I actually recommend that they start out and they have a discounted rate. You just make sure you explicitly say in your profile and in your proposal that your rate is discounted because you're new to Upwork or wherever you happen to be trying to get clients, so that you set the expectation that your rates will go up at some point, and clients are expecting that. So that can be a good way to get clients to not care about your lack of experience or skills and give you a shot when you're brand new. Another thing you can do, and this goes back to mentors can help you with this. They might be someone who can do this for you, but subcontracting. So that is a thing. You can subcontract for other freelancers who are in the same industry. If you're attending events or you're volunteering at nonprofit organizations, if you're doing some of these other things, that's where you can find some of these people. And again, that can be a really great way to not only get the stuff for your portfolio and get the experience, but to really learn and get better at what you're doing, and also network and find other people, that may be able to send work your way, etc. So subcontracting is a thing that happens quite a bit, and it's something that can be very valuable for gaining the experience and skills that you need. Just make sure that anybody you subcontract with, you really get clear on what the expectations are, what the compensation, if any, will be, and all of the fine details of that, so that you have a good experience. And the way to do that is to be clear about everything up front. And so that's a bunch of tips for getting around a lack of experience or skills, but it's really probably the number one reason why clients don't hire freelancers is the freelancer simply doesn't have the experience that they're after, or there's another freelancer who has a lot more or a lot more relevant experience that they end up going with. So again, really the thing to do is continuously work on improving your skills and getting the portfolio items, getting the job history, and so forth, so that you are that freelancer now that has all the experience and skills. But ultimately, the thing to remember is that everyone starts somewhere. Everyone starts out facing this problem. Anybody who starts freelancing, outside of a few rare exceptions, they probably don't have a bunch of experience because they're just starting. They probably don't have a bunch of skills, or they're still working on their skills, or they don't have a way to prove their skills, again, because they're just starting. So this is something every freelancer faces, and you have to get around. It's really your first major roadblock, is just getting that experience. So don't just scoff at these ideas because you don't want to do that thing or you're too good for it. These are the ways that you can get around it. So you got to pick something and get around not having the experience that clients are looking for, and get it, and it makes everything a heck of a lot easier. So with a little persistence, a little hard work, a little creativity, a little humility, you can get past this roadblock, and you can start getting the experience you need, getting the stuff in your portfolio, getting the reviews, and that's when you can really take off on Upwork and start landing clients and getting the bigger jobs and so forth. Reason number 2 why your proposals aren't getting accepted is they're poorly written. Clients are busy. They don't have time to read through a bunch of proposals that aren't clear or well written. So if they come across a poorly written proposal, they're just going to throw it out and move on to the dozens of others that they have waiting for them. So here's some ways that your proposal might be getting lost in that sea of proposals because they're poorly written. Number 1 is grammar and spelling errors. Nothing screams really unprofessional like a proposal full of grammar and spelling mistakes. Because if you can't be bothered to proofread your proposal, why should a client trust you with their project? And brings me to a point that I want to make here, is that your proposal is not just about what you say, it's about what you demonstrate in the proposal. And if it's full of spelling errors, that's demonstrating that you don't pay attention to detail. And so they're immediately going to throw it out. So you have to really look at both of those, not just what you're saying, but what you're demonstrating by how you write your proposal, when you submit it, what kind of, if you've proofreading it, if there's a bunch of spelling and grammar, if you demonstrates that you haven't read their job description, all of those things are just as important, really probably more important than what you actually write in your proposal. So it's a really common mistake that immediately gets your people's proposals thrown out. Another one is lack of detail. So clients want to know that you really understand their project and you've assessed it and you really genuinely believe that you're the right fit for it. You're not just blasting out proposals to a bunch of different projects trying to make money. They're really looking to avoid that person, the person who's just in it for the money. They want the person who can be objective and can be disciplined and analyze a project and say if they're not a good fit for it. And so if you don't include enough detail in your proposal, then that can signal to the client that you didn't really read the job description, or you don't know a ton about the industry that you happen to be in, and they can move on to someone else. Now that might not be true, but that's kind of what it signals to the client. So you want enough detail to demonstrate that you know what you're talking about, that you understand their project really well, but not so much that you end up writing a 30-page novel that they're never going to read. So it's a balance there, but you want to make sure you have enough detail for the client to really believe that you know what you're doing. Another one, this may seem counterintuitive, but it's a lack of personality. Your proposal really should show your personality and let the client know, why you're the best person for the job in terms of actually working with them, not just the skills and experience, but the relationship, because you're probably going to be working closely together. You're going to have calls and messages back and forth and so forth. So you want to try to have a bit of a personality match. And the other thing is that in an environment where everything's so competitive and there's probably dozens of other proposals that they're looking at, you need something that's completely unique to you that no one else can replicate. Other freelancers can replicate, not making spelling errors or experience. They may even have more experience or skills or job history, reviews. All of that stuff can be replicated. What can't be replicated is your unique personality. And a lot of times a client will pick someone simply because they like working with that person better. If all else is equal and they feel like they might like working with this person better, they're going to pick that person. And so if you express a little bit of your personality in your proposal, that can help you create that connection and help them resonate with you a little bit more and kind of push you over the edge to getting hired. Now, you don't want to go too far with it, obviously. You want to keep things professional, but you do still want to inject a little bit of personality into your proposals. All right, so those are some common proposal mistakes. There's definitely plenty more, but those are some of the common ones that I see or that I think are important. Now let's talk about some tips for improving your Upwork proposals overall. And tip number one, I'm going to be harping a lot on this throughout this video because it's so important, but it's researching the client. You need to take some time to learn about their needs, their preferences, past projects, all of that before writing your proposal, because it's going to help you tailor your proposal to their specific needs and stand out from everybody else. And again, in a very competitive environment like Upwork, it's all of these little things that matter. And a client's going to really be able to see if you've done the research and taken the time to understand their project, understand them, and written a proposal that is tailored to them and their project. That's going to mean a lot to them. It doesn't mean you'll get hired for every project, but it really will increase your chances of getting hired. Another one, this again might sound really simple, but you need to make your proposal easy to read, because if it's hard to read, a client, again, they have dozens of others, they're going to go to the ones that are easier to read. And bullet points is a really simple and good way that you can do that, is breaking things up into bullet points, highlighting key information in bullet points so you make sure the client gets the most important parts of what you're trying to communicate to them. So simple one, but it is important. All right, some more tips for improving your proposal. So another thing you do is just be concise. So Don't use a bunch of unnecessary words or fluff in your proposal. Try to keep it short and sweet and to the point, because again, they're not going to read a novel. If it's too long, they're just going to move on because they don't even want to deal with it because they have so many other proposals to look at and they're busy. Next one is showcasing your skills. So you want to make sure and use specific examples from your past work to showcase your skills and experience. And the key really here is about relevance. So you don't just want to say, hey, look at my portfolio. You want to point out specific items if you can, if you have them, that are closely related to the client's project, and show that to the clients and say, see, I've done this thing that's really similar to what you want done, or exactly what you want done. And that's going to help the client to see that you really can do what they need done and how you can help them with their project. So that's a really important thing that you can do in your proposals. Another one, again, a simple one, but it has to do with how you actually write your proposal, and that's using active voice. When you write in an active voice, it just makes it easier to read, more engaging, more persuasive, etc. So it's a small thing, but it's one of those little things that can push you over the edge and make a client just feel like they resonate with you a little bit more, and they're going to choose you over someone else who maybe everything else is the same. This could be the one thing that puts you over the edge. Along those lines, again, you want to use a professional tone. You want to be friendly. You want to be approachable. You don't want to be overly formal, but you do still want to keep it professional and businesslike and show them that you're a pro, you're an expert, you take your job serious, and you're going to take their project serious. It just helps to exude credibility and trust and give you a better chance of getting hired. Also including a call to action. So it's kind of sales 101, but if you don't ask for the sale, it's like 80 to 90% of the time you're not going to get it. So you want to make sure and include a call to action in your proposal, whatever that is for you. Now, just as a little side note here, I've seen some different videos and so forth where people talk about you have to do this specific type of close. Having been in sales and marketing as long as I have, I know that there's a ton of different closes that you can do, both hard closes, soft closes, etc. And some of those are relevant to Upwork. So you could ask someone to just message you, and that be what your call to action is. It could be them getting on a Zoom call or a phone call with you. That could be your call to action, or your call to action could be them just hiring you directly. And I've seen advice out there where someone will say, you need to just do this one thing, this one type of close. You need them to get on a Zoom call with you, and that's it. That's all you should do. And I've never really liked that advice because it really depends on where you're at in your career. If you're brand new and you're trying to get any work that you can get, then yes, having them message you or jumping on a Zoom call or whatever the case may be, that's a good approach to take because it's more of a soft close. You're not actually asking them to hire you right then and there. And then you can get them on a call or in the message chatting back and forth, then close the sale that way. But if you're later in your career and you're getting inundated with job invites, then you don't want to be spending a bunch of time messaging back and forth and jumping on Zoom calls with people who, aren't going to hire you, or you have to go through all these extra hoops for them to hire you. Maybe if it's a certain project, it might be worth doing. But when you have that many job invites coming into your inbox, you really just want to stick to the people who are ready to hire. And so your call to action can be more of a hard close. So just be leery of advice out there that tells you to take one specific approach to how you close in your proposals. Depending on the situation, depending on the client, depending on where you're at in your career and so forth, you can be using different closes and different calls to action, and you just want to use your own intuition. You're smart enough to figure that out about when you should use a different kind of close. So again, just want a little side note there. That's important when it comes to your call to action. All right, next up is proofreading your proposal. So again, once you're all done, you've written it all, you want to make sure and go back and just proofread it real quick. Make sure it's free of typos, grammatical errors, other mistakes. Again, these are things that are going to really stand out to a client and immediately get your proposal dismissed. And if you do this and you don't have all those stuff, it helps you come across more professional, more credible, more trustworthy, pay more attention to detail, and so forth. And those are all things that you want to demonstrate in your proposal. You can also use a proposal template. So a template can help you structure your proposal and make sure you're including all the necessary information and do it on a consistent basis. So it can help you to be more consistent with your proposals and have consistently good proposals that you're sending to clients, which is going to just automatically increase your chances of getting hired. The big thing here, though, is you just want to make sure that you're using a good template and one that's actually been shown to work. Otherwise, it's sort of pointless. I myself have used a 4-part template for years, and all of my proposals worked great for me. And it's allowed me to be consistent. Every single job that I've ever gotten on Upwork, I've used that same template. So if you're interested in my template, I go through it in detail in my book, Upwork Essentials. I'll drop a link to that book in the description if you're interested in that. All right, next up is simply getting feedback. So after you write your proposal, especially when you're first starting and you're still trying to figure out kind of your way of writing proposals that works for you, ask a friend or a colleague or a family member, anybody, to read your proposal and just provide you with feedback. That can help you to identify things that you might not see because you're so close to the text. Getting a second pair of eyes can help you find some glaring issues that you're just overlooking and ultimately make your proposal better. So let's look at an example. Let's say that you're a freelance writer and you're applying for a job writing blog posts for a travel website. So you might start by researching the client's website, their social media channels, and just getting a sense of their brand voice, the kind of topics they cover, and so forth, and just getting a sense of who they are and how they communicate and so forth. Then based on that, you could tailor your proposal to their specific needs. You've read the job description in detail. Like I've said, you've visited their site. And you could include examples of your travel writing experience if you have that. Let's assume you do. You could highlight your ability to write engaging, informative blog posts. You could drop in little things that you've learned by looking at their website that you think are important to them, that will stand out to them. You could use bullet points to break up your proposal, make it more readable, include a clear call to action at the end. Encouraging the client to contact you with any questions or to discuss the project further. And once you've written it all, you could proofread your proposal yourself and then ask a friend or colleague to provide feedback before submitting it to the client. So essentially, all of that sounds simple enough, but that really kind of takes you through everything we've talked about improving the quality of your proposals. The reality is the majority of Upworkers simply aren't going to do all that. So if you do, it's an instant, easy advantage that you can create for yourself because you'll be creating higher quality proposals on a more consistent basis, which will allow you to stand out in a good way to potential clients, to demonstrate to them how good you are, how much you pay attention to detail, how proactive you are, etc. So a lot of the tips that we talked about, they sound simple, but it's when you add them all up and do it in a consistent way that really matters. So you don't want to underestimate their importance, because lots of Upworkers make these mistakes and it costs them jobs, and they don't even know it, and it might be what's costing you jobs right now with your proposals. So again, make sure and go through those things and pay attention to them. Also, I've written a whole blog post that covers the top 10 best practices for writing Upwork proposals. So if you want to dig further into writing Upwork proposals, you can check out that blog post. I'll link to it in the description. It's just over on my website, freely available for you to take a look at. But I think it's worth giving a read to improve your proposals even more beyond what we've covered here. Reason number 3 why your Upwork proposals aren't getting accepted: overpricing, which is probably a bit of a sensitive subject because a lot of people on Upwork feel like they're undercharging. But you have to keep in mind, clients on Upwork are looking for freelancers who can provide high quality work at an affordable price. So if your rates are too high, they're just too high, and you might be turning those clients off. So let's say that you're a freelance writer and you're charging $100 an hour for your services. Now to you, that might seem reasonable, what you're worth, what you want to charge, etc. But it might be way above what the client is willing to pay. You have no idea. So they might be looking for someone who can write quality content for $50 an hour or even less. So even if you're the most skilled writer in the world, this is the point, even if you're the most skilled writer in the world, you have the best job history, the best reviews, the best portfolio, if you're way overpriced, then the client's just going to move on to someone else who's still pretty good, but has a much more reasonable price. So again, that's overpricing, and it is a real thing. Now, of course, it's also important to value your time and your expertise, but you need to be realistic about what the market is really willing to pay. And the nice thing is that you can do some research on Upwork or other freelance websites, and you can see what the going rate is roughly for your services. And you might find that you just need to adjust your rates in order to be more competitive. Of course, another part of this is the client's budget. So if a client has a limited budget for a project, they're more likely to hire someone whose rates fit within that budget, obviously. So if your rates are too high, then they just might not even consider you. They might just throw your proposal out right away. So if you really want to work with a particular client, or you're just desperate for work, then you might need to be flexible with your pricing, again, within a range. You don't want to completely undercut pricing either, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So it's a balance between pricing your services at a rate that you're comfortable with and that you're willing to accept, while also understanding there's a reality to the market rate. And if you're just way out of whack with that market rate, then it's going to be difficult for you to get hired. So this might be a thing that is going on with your proposals and why they're not getting accepted. So here's some tips for properly pricing your services on Upwork. And number one is probably the biggest one, which is you need to research the market rates. So before submitting a proposal, you need to research the market rates for the job and make sure that your rates are competitive. You don't want to price yourself out of the market, but you also don't want to undercharge and undervalue your skills and experience. The great thing is you can look up all sorts of different projects, and if you have a client account, you can look at other freelancers and what they're charging. You can go on sites like Fiverr, you can use Google. There's lots of ways to do this and get a sense of what the market rates are, what other freelancers are generally charging for the same service. So the data's out there. You just need to take the time to research it, particularly if you're honing in on a very specific niche. You should really understand the pricing in that niche if you're going to be working inside of it over and over and over. So number one, that's the biggest one, research the market rates and understand. And if you're going to go higher, make sure you can really justify that price, why you're more expensive than other freelancers. Next, be transparent. This kind of follows along with what I just said, but if you do have higher rates due to specialized skills, or you just have way more experience, or whatever the case may be, whatever the reason is that you have higher rates, be transparent with the client and explain to them in your proposal why your rates are higher, because that can help them to understand the extra value that you bring to the project. And it might be that they didn't really know how to price their project, and when they hear what you have to say, they're like, oh yeah, that matters to me. I want that. I'm willing to pay more for that. So again, just be transparent with it in your proposal. And again, you got to know the market rate to know if you're higher than the market rate. And then that will lead into you knowing you have to justify your higher rate in your proposal. So all of this sort of works hand in hand. But you really need to nail your pricing when it comes to Upwork proposals. Another thing you can do is offer different packages. So the different packages with varying levels of service or deliverables at different price points. That gives the client options to choose a package that fits their budget and their needs that they're comfortable with. Now, obviously, in regular jobs on Upwork, that's not going to necessarily be something you can do, but Upwork has its fixed price projects, and that's a great place that you can do this, is to offer different packages, and maybe in your proposal point a client to those packages and have them take a look and see if one is a good fit for what they're after. So that's another thing that you can do. Of course, showcasing your value. So in your proposal, you need to highlight the value that you bring to the project and how your skills and experience can help them finish their project and achieve their goals with the project. And that's how you, again, can justify your rates if they're higher, or even if they're not higher, even if they're the same as everybody else's. You still want to make sure you're highlighting that value so that the client can see that you're worth the price that you're charging and that they're going to be paying. So that's another thing, showing your results. So if you have results that you can show the client, that's the best thing that you can really do. Like if you have a track record of delivering high quality work and achieving results, getting results for your clients, absolutely need to highlight that in your proposal. That's going to go a long way towards them wanting to hire you, because it demonstrates to them that you can get them the results that they're after. That won't apply to every project necessarily or every niche, but a lot of niches it will. If you're in marketing or doing blog writing that's SEO related, etc., then that kind of thing can apply. So you're going to make sure and A, collect those as you're freelancing, but B, then show them your portfolio, your overview, your proposals, etc. Of course, being flexible is a part of all of this, so be open to negotiating rates and finding a mutually beneficial solution. If your proposals are constantly getting rejected and you're not getting the work that you want, then you really should be flexible when it comes to your rates, so that you can get the work and build up your experience and job history so that you can then charge more as time goes on. And it shows the client that you're willing to work with them, and it can kind of help to establish a positive relationship up front and maybe become a long-term relationship where you work for that client for a long period of time. So just be willing to be open-minded and flexible if appropriate and necessary. I kind of alluded to this, but you want to consider the long term. So if you're interested in building long-term relationships with clients, which you should be, that's where the money really is in freelancing, then you might consider offering a lower rate initially, with the potential for a rate increase once you've worked with that client a lot, or just more work down the line, whatever the case may be. You just want to think about the long-term picture and not just the immediate, what am I getting out of this client right here and now? You really want to try to foster long-term relationships. My most lucrative client I was with for over 12 years and on retainer for over 12 years. I mean, I made hundreds of thousands of dollars with that client. So that's the value of the long term. And it's really where the money is in freelancing in any service business. So be willing to maybe lower your rate initially in order to get a client like that then you end up working with for years and years, and they pay you really, really well. Of course, be strategic. So obviously you can target clients who have higher budgets, and that will fit better with your pricing, or who are looking for specialized skills, or who really have a high demand for someone with a lot of experience, and they're willing to pay those premium rates. So be strategic in how you're targeting what jobs you bid on. If you're charging $60 an hour, you shouldn't be bidding on the projects where they're wanting someone for $5 an hour or $10 an hour, wherever the case is. So just be smart and strategic when it comes to that. And of course, as I mentioned before, continuously improve. So as you improve your skills, you get more experience, then that can justify those higher rates, and you're ultimately able to provide more value to clients, so they'll be willing to pay you more. So that's really, again, kind of the bottom of all of this is continuous improvement is going to help you to really get hired easier, be able to charge more, have longer term relationships, all of that. So ultimately, by following all of these, then you can overcome the problem of overpricing in your Upwork proposals and really greatly increase your chances of getting accepted for projects that align with your skills and experience. And just remember, it's all about finding the right balance between pricing yourself competitively so you get the jobs, but also valuing your skills and experience so that you don't feel underpaid and underappreciated, undervalued, etc. Reason number 4, underpricing. I think this is the part of the video where I'm going to get yelled at, like, underpricing? How can underpricing be a thing? But yes, it is a thing, and here's a few reasons why clients might not be accepting your proposals because you're underpricing. Number 1, they can just view it as a red flag. When a proposal comes in with a rate that's significantly lower than the market average and all the other proposals that they're seeing, clients are going to wonder why. They're going to look at that and say, why is this person charging so little? Are they inexperienced? Do they lack confidence in their abilities? Are they cutting corners? All of that. And while those things might not be true, they can create doubt in the client's mind and make them less likely to hire you. So if you're gonna underprice if you're going to do that strategy and discount your rate, which is a good strategy. You don't want to do it so dramatically that it becomes a red flag. So if the clients want someone who, or the market rate is $50 an hour and you're charging $5, that's a red flag. But if it's $50 an hour and you're charging, say, $40 and you're saying, hey, I'm doing this because, I have a ton of experience off Upwork, but I'm new to Upwork and I got to build up my job history over here, and so I'm charging a little bit less as I get started, then that all makes sense to the client. It's not a red flag. So you just have to be smart about that and not turn your trying to underbid the project into a red flag for the client that makes them not hire you. Of course, if you continually do that, you're likely to attract low quality clients, and I know that's probably not not PC to say there's low quality clients, but there certainly are. There are clients that you don't want to work with and whose primary focus is just getting the cheapest rate no matter what, and then what's going to happen is those clients are often the ones that are going to micromanage you. They're going to demand a bunch of revisions, refuse to pay. That's where a lot of the problems come with, is the low quality clients, and them wanting to pay a really, 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 really low rate, like an excessively low rate, is a signal that it might be a low quality client. Not always, but that is a signal. So just be wary of that. And if you're constantly underpricing, those are the kind of clients you're going to ultimately attract. And of course, if you're doing this regularly, it's going to be harder to raise your rates in the future because you have rock bottom rates, and justifying raising them with clients, especially existing clients, can sometimes be difficult. Or if a client, you bid on a project, or a client invites you to a job and they look through your job history and they see the rates that you charge, and now you're charging a rate that's much, much higher, then that can cause them to maybe take a step back or not want to hire you, etc. So you want to price competitively. You can underbid, that's fine, but not so much that it hampers your long-term career. Now, of course, a lot of the tips here for underpricing are going to be similar to overpricing, because it's really not about over or under, it's about accurate pricing. But here's a few additional tips that are specific to underpricing. So number one is just consider your experience. If you have more experience in your field, then you can justify charging higher rates. If you don't, then you're probably going to have to charge a little bit lower, at least at first. And you want to make sure, ultimately, the point here is that you want to make sure that there's congruence between your profile, your portfolio, your proposal, all of that, and your pricing. So if you have a ton of experience and you have raving reviews and you just look like the greatest freelancer ever, but you're charging a third the rate of everybody else, it's gonna kind of become a red flag. And the opposite is true, is if you don't have a bunch of that stuff and you're charging 3 times what everybody else is, the client's going to be like, well, why would I hire this person? They don't have any of the experience or skills that the other people have. So you just need congruence between your experience and your rate. Similar story when it comes to your niche. So take a look at the niche that you're going into and research the going rates for those projects on Upwork, and then adjust your prices accordingly, because you want to price yourself competitively, but also not undervalue your work. So analyzing your niche can give you an idea of what a good rate would be. Or if you look through the niche and you're like, all of these projects are either priced way too high, which could be the case, or way too low, then you might consider tweaking or just completely changing your niche if you have to, in order to get into a more sustainable or a price point that's going to work better for you based off of where you're at in your career and so forth. So that's, again, coupled with your experience, your niche, etc. A really good example that I could use is copywriting. A lot of people who hire copywriters are going to want someone who has a lot of experience, and they're going to expect to pay a lot for those services. So if you are someone who wants to get into copywriting and you're brand new, it might be difficult to break into that niche, because the standard, the demand from the client is so high that they're just not even going to hire someone who doesn't have a ton of experience, and they're more than willing to pay the high prices for someone who's good. So you may have to tweak your niche at first and find maybe a sub niche or a little loophole or a gap in the market where you can insert yourself and be able to charge maybe a little bit lower prices, but still actually get hired. So that's the basic idea here. Another thing is consider your expenses. So factor in your expenses such as software subscription, equipment costs, all of that when setting your rate, taxes, business expenses, all of that, because that helps you to kind of figure out what your threshold for profitability is, so that you know if, hey, if I'm above this, then I'm making profit, how much profit you're making, and also can be, justifying a little bit to clients if necessary. If you're asked about your rate, you can say, well, I've got this expense, this expense, this expense, this expense, and I have to account for all of these things in what I do. And a client, again, in a negotiation, that can kind of make sense to them because they're business people too often, and they have to operate on the same principles. So again, consider those expenses, have them kind of known, maybe written down somewhere, so that if the topic comes up, you can bring them up and explain it to the client. You can also offer value adds, so additional revisions, faster turnaround time, whatever. It's going to be specific to your particular niche that you're working in, but anything that you can do to add value to the offer that you're making to the client. So your skills and your abilities and all of that are one part of it. That's your ability to deliver. That's kind of the solution. But you also have the offer. And so what they're paying is part of that offer, but what they're getting is the other part of that offer. So if you can add value to what you're offering that's greater than other freelancers who are just offering themselves, essentially, they don't have any value adds, then that can be a way that you can kind of push yourself over the top. So think about value adds that you can include with your services that make your service even more valuable, that can justify rates, help you get hired easier, etc. Another thing is just be confident. So when you're setting your rates, be confident in your skills and the value that you can provide to clients. Don't be timid or shy. And if you do the research, you're going to be confident in the price that you're offering. So stick with it. And that confidence will come across in your proposal and your profile. And I always believe in everything that confidence comes from competence. And that's not just you being good at what you do. That's certainly part of it. But it's also, again, you doing the research, you knowing the market rate, you knowing the justifications for why your pricing is the way that it is, you being able to explain it. All of that is a part of being confident. And so in order to be confident, you have to put in the work. You have to do the work in order to know that your price, I'm confident in this price. This is a good price for what I do, who I am, where I'm at in my career, etc. You could also highlight your value proposition, or should also highlight your value proposition. So emphasize your unique selling points, what's unique about you, what's different about you, how you're maybe better or just different than the other freelancers who are bidding on the project, and explain how your skills, your experience, what you do, your process, all of that can benefit the client, why it's better for them than other options. And again, that can help justify your pricing, make you stand out in a good way, all of those things, and make it more likely that your proposals get accepted. And finally, what I would recommend is set a minimum rate. So again, do the research that we've talked about, figure out a minimum rate, and then just stick to it. And don't be tempted to lower your rates just to win a job. If you're confident in your rate, if it's competitive, and you really believe this is what you should be charging, then be willing to stick to it and stick to your guns. Because if you don't, it can kind of create a cycle of underpricing and undervaluing your work and getting back in that position where it's hard to raise your rates later. So do the work, figure out your rates, figure out your minimum rate, and then just kind of stick to it, and be willing to then just kind of fluctuate and tweak, but not just radically underprice your services in order to try and get hired, because it usually is going to backfire on you. So ultimately, underpricing can be a big barrier to getting your proposals accepted. But as I've shown you here, there's several ways that you can overcome this hurdle and increase your chances of landing clients, but not only landing clients, but landing them at a fair rate. So doing your research, showcasing your value, building relationships with clients, all of that, you can position yourself as a desirable freelancer and command the rates that you deserve. And remember, stay patient, stay persistent. Don't be afraid to negotiate or pivot your services, change your niche if necessary, all of that. But ultimately, with all of this in mind, you can tackle the issue of underpricing head on and help you to have more success on Upwork. Reason number 5, an incomplete profile. So obviously when a client is looking for a freelancer to hire, they want to make sure that they're getting someone who has the right skills and experience for the job. And one of the ways that they assess that is by checking out the freelancer's profile. So if your profile is incomplete or missing important information, it can make it harder for the client to determine if you're the right fit for the job. And really, if they have to work too hard to assess it, they're just going to move on to somebody else. So again, another reason why your proposals might not be getting accepted. Now, imagine a client, just to look at an example, imagine a client is looking for a freelance graphic designer to create a logo for their business. And they come across 2 proposals that are equally impressive. But one freelancer has a complete profile with a portfolio showcasing previous logo designs, while the other freelancer has a less complete profile with no portfolio. Who do you think the client is more likely to hire? And keep in mind, your profile gets attached to your proposal, so the client's gonna see it. So again, who do you think the client is more likely to hire? Obviously, the freelancer that has the complete profile, all else being equal. So you just want to stack everything in your favor. So what information should you include in your profile to make it stand out to clients? Well, here are some of the key ones that you need to complete at a minimum. Again, this is at a minimum. If you don't have these things, you are quite literally hurting yourself. And of course, the more complete you can make your profile beyond this stuff, the better. So some of this stuff is simple, it's obvious, but I'm going to go through and just make sure that you have all of these in line. So number 1 is, of course, a professional profile picture. Really just helps put a face to your name and makes your profile feel more personal. A lot of times it's the first thing a client's going to see, so you just want to have something that's at least semi-professional looking. It's not too rough or trying to be edgy or anything like that. Just lets the client know you're a serious freelancer, you're serious about your work, you're a professional, and you can help them with their project, build trust, credibility, etc. Next is a catchy and informative headline. So you want something that's short and sweet enough that they can read it very quick, but you also want to give a clear indication of what you do and what you're good at. And you also need to balance a little bit the fact that Upwork is a search engine, and so you need to insert your main keywords into it as well. There's a lot to do there, but you just want to make sure that you're really thinking that through and putting together a headline that does the best job you can come up with of accomplishing all of those different goals. So take some time with the headline. Again, it's a very important part, not only for clients and what they're going to see, but also the algorithm and how it's going to assess you, and ultimately the searches and suggestions that it's going to rank you for. Next up is probably the most important one, which is a detailed profile overview. So this is really your chance to tell the client why they should hire you, showcase your skills, your experience, your personality, inject social proof, all of those things. So this is really where the rubber meets the road. Make sure that your profile, you go over it and over it and over it and really put some thought and time into it. Don't spend weeks or months doing it, but don't just also slap something in there in 5 minutes. You want to make sure it's well written, it's informative, it's engaging, and it really puts your best foot forward, especially if you're in a situation where you don't necessarily have a ton of job history, reviews, you're brand new on the site, maybe you don't have a ton in your portfolio. Really the only thing that you're going to have if you're in that situation to convince a client to hire you is your profile overview. So you really want to think it through and make sure you're putting together something that not only stands out from other freelancers, but makes a compelling case why someone should hire you over everybody else that they have access to. You always have to keep that competition in mind. So your profile overview is really important for this. Of course, your portfolio, this is how you showcase your best work and just give clients an idea of what you can do. It's how you demonstrate your skills and experience to your clients. The one thing that I'll say here is that if you don't have past client work to put in your portfolio, I've advised this for over a decade now, and I see that there's a lot of other YouTubers that are now out there giving this advice, but if you don't have past client work you can put in your portfolio, that's fine. You can just do work just on your own, just to put in your portfolio. So if you are, let's just say I build membership sites. So let's say you're building membership sites in WordPress. That's what your niche is going to be. Well, you had to learn how to do that. You had to practice at some point, or if you haven't already, you need to, so you can get good at it. So go build some membership sites just for yourself. They can be on your local host. They don't have to be on some URL. You don't have to do all that. Just go and build some different examples, build 4 or 5, and then do the screenshots and all of that and put it into your portfolio to show the client what you can do. Ultimately, your portfolio, it's not so much about past work and client work. That's better because it's both a portfolio item and a kind of testimonial. So it's an example or a sample of your work and a testimonial because you did it for a client. But if you don't have that, really it's about putting examples and samples of your work, and it doesn't have to be for another client. They just want to see what you're capable of doing. So honestly, anybody that I ever work with, if they don't have something in their portfolio, that's the first thing that I'm going to do with them, is tell them to put together something to put in their portfolio, because getting hired without something in your portfolio is very, very difficult. So I'm belaboring the point here a little bit. I recognize that, but it's that important. You need to have stuff in your portfolio, and just make stuff up. Just make something and put it in there rather than have it empty. All right, next then is your skills and certifications. So you just want to make sure and list all the skills and certifications that are relevant to your work. This can kind of help a little bit with lack of portfolio, or maybe a thin portfolio, in the fact that if you have a certification that is tied very closely to the kind of work you do, so let's say you're going to be doing Facebook ads, and you have the Facebook ads, Facebook's, or Meta, I guess now, their certification. If you have that, then that can help you to get around some of these other issues, because you have the exact certification for that specific skill from the company, that offers those ads. And same thing for, Google, and there's a whole bunch of other ones out there that do these kinds of certifications. So that is a way that you can help to deal with a thin or non-existent portfolio, although still I would put stuff in your portfolio as best you can. So those are the parts of your profile that you should include at a minimum, although again, I recommend specialized profiles, the fixed price projects that they have on there, and anything they might come out with in the future, etc., that you can to make your profile complete. I would fill as much of it out as possible in order to give the client everything you can to make the case for them hiring you. Another big thing is it's important to keep your profile up to date, because as you gain new skills and experience, you want to make sure and add those to your profile, new portfolio items and so forth. It shows clients that you're constantly improving, that you're staying up to date. And again, it's a lot of it is just a demonstration thing. If you're not keeping your profile and your way of selling yourself most up to date, it kind of shows the client that maybe you don't pay as much attention to detail. Now, that might not be true, but that's kind of the message that it sends. So you want to always keep everything up to date as possible, and don't be afraid to tweak and mess with it and try new things and so forth, and see what happens with your profile. Ultimately, having a complete profile is crucial if you want to stand out to clients and increase your chances of getting hired. And make sure you include all the key elements we've discussed, keep it up to date, and with a profile that's complete and done well, then that's going to go a long way towards helping you land the projects that you want on Upwork. Again, especially considering that profile is included when you submit proposals. So they're going to see it and most likely going to look through it. So an incomplete profile, you might think, oh, these are proposals, I don't have to worry about it. No, an incomplete profile or a profile that's not done well can hurt you, because it's right there along with your proposal. Reason number 6 is timing. So picture this. A client has just posted a job, and within minutes, their inbox is flooded with proposals from dozens of eager freelancers. They're scrolling through the list and they're trying to decide who to hire, but they quickly realize that they don't have the time or energy or desire to read through all of them. So what are they going to do? Well, they're going to start skimming. They're going to look for something that catches their eye. They're going to look for shortcuts, etc. So that's really the situation most clients are in on Upwork. They submit a project and immediately get flooded with proposals. So you have to always remember that and think of all the different things that can influence how you come across, whether you stand out, whether you get seen, whether you get read, whether you get hired, etc. And so this is where timing can play a role, because if your proposal is buried under dozens of others, it's less likely to get notice. But if you are able to submit your proposal when there are fewer competing proposals, then you have a better chance of standing out, because the client's going to see yours come through immediately and have a better chance of them looking at it. So how can you time your proposals for maximum impact? Well, here's a few tips. Number one, simple, submit your proposals early. So if you see a job post that you're interested in, don't wait to submit your proposal. You don't want to wait until especially if you see the number of proposals that have been submitted is low, you want to get in there right away, because by submitting it early, you can increase your chance of being seen, because the client is still kind of paying attention. They haven't been overrun with proposals yet. So the earlier you can get in, the better. I know there's a lot of freelancers who will kind of, during their workday, they'll just have Upwork open and they'll kind of constantly be looking through it or refreshing, etc., in order to make sure they catch any new project that comes through, so they can be one of the first people to bid on it. So if you want to really dig into Upwork and be committed to it, that's something that you can do. Another simple thing you can do is just check the client's time zone. Clients on Upwork are often located in different parts of the world, which means they're going to be working in a different time zone than you. So before submitting your proposal, make sure to check what time it is in that client's, where that client lives. Maybe they submitted this project and it's like 11:30 at night for them, and there's a really good chance that they submitted the project and they're just going to go to bed and check it in the morning. So maybe submitting a proposal right then and there might not be the best idea, or maybe it is the best idea to be one of the first submitted. So again, there could be a lot of nuance there to how that works and what the right timing is, and it really depends on the scenario and the situation and so forth. But you want to pay attention to the timing and the time zone and kind of think through when would be the best time for you to submit this proposal. Usually earlier is going to be better, but there might be some cases where it would be better for you to wait a little bit. Next is being quick to respond to any messages, because when a client reaches out to you or shows interest in your proposal, that's a huge sign that they're not going to do that with everybody. So you want to make sure and respond as quickly as possible, and the timing of how quickly you respond to that message is going to have an impact on whether they decide to hire you or not. So if they message, let's say 3 freelancers, and one responds immediately and the other 2 don't respond till the next day, and it's, let's say it's the morning of Thursday and they don't respond till Friday, that's going to kind of demonstrate to the client that maybe these guys aren't as available, or maybe they're not very good at getting back in messages, etc. So you just want to be quick to respond if the client messages you. It shows that you're very interested and you're engaged in the project and you really want to land the job. Next, be concise. So keep your proposal short and to the point. Clients don't really have time to read lengthy proposals, as we've talked about. They're busy. So make sure to, as best you can, highlight your key skills, your experience, any proof that you might have, or social proof, or pointing to something in your portfolio, etc. But do it in as concise of manner as possible. And there's an art to that. Again, you don't want to just necessarily put in 3 words, but you also don't want to write 17 pages. So you need to kind of find a balance of making sure you get everything across that you want to, but also being concise enough that they'll actually read it, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if they don't read it. Tip number 5 then is setting expectations. So you do want to be upfront with the client about your availability and turnaround time. This can help to manage their expectations and prevent any miscommunications down the line. It can also be a subtle way that you can inject a little bit of urgency. So You want it to be legitimate. You don't want to make anything like this up. But if you are busy and maybe you have room for one more client, you might want to say that. Say, hey, I had, just finished a project. I have room for one more client. I've got, 6 other proposals that are kind of in the works. So if you want to hire me, now would be a good time, or something along those lines. You could kind of futz with how to say that, but it can be a subtle way of injecting a little bit of scarcity or urgency by setting expectations around what your availability is and how much other stuff you have going on and so forth. So at the end of the day, you just want to make sure that you're very transparent with the client and you don't set any expectations or let them have expectations that they don't necessarily communicate, but they have them that aren't really realistic or don't fit with what you're thinking. So you just want to be clear about all of that stuff up front. Another thing you can do is use Upwork's messaging system. We talked about this a little bit, but messaging the client after you submit proposals. I have a client account. Every time I submit a project as a client, I immediately get a number of proposals, but I also get messages from several of the freelancers. And so I usually end up hiring one of the ones that messages me, just because it's this immediate feeling and that ability to submit a project and then just hire someone 5 minutes later it's a good feeling as a client. So messaging the client after you submit your proposal and let them know that they can reach out if they have any questions, or let them know about how you might work on the project or whatever. Again, keep it short and to the point. You don't want to be overly pushy or aggressive with it, but messaging them after you submit your proposal is a technique I've seen used a lot. It works well on me as a client. Not something that I do a ton as a freelancer myself, but most of the projects that I worked on anymore are things I've been invited to. So it's a little bit different scenario. But yeah, again, just messaging someone after you submit your proposal can be a good way to get their attention and get hired right away, because they just want to hire someone very quick. Next, ask for feedback. So if your proposal doesn't get accepted, a good thing to do is ask the client for feedback and ask why, because that can give you, sometimes that little bit of insight can be something that you never even thought of. Or it's something that's really simple and obvious, and it helps you to realize, oh, it's not because I'm a horrible freelancer, or I'm a horrible person, or I'm cursed, or a lot of these kind of self-defeating thoughts that can come up when you get rejected. It's just something simple. It'd be like, oh, this person, had a little bit more experience. It's like, okay, that's nothing too crazy. So asking for that feedback, it can help you to get better. It can help alleviate some of the doubts and maybe negative self-talk that you have, and ultimately just help you better to submit better proposals in the future. So if you don't get hired, don't be afraid to ask clients for feedback on why you didn't get hired. And if you do that enough, you're going to start getting some really good feedback, and you're going to really have some good insight on how to change your proposals in order to get hired. Of course, be patient. Obviously, clients have a large number of proposals, and it can take a while for them to review them and respond to each one. So be patient. Don't give up. Following up is fine. Just don't be too overly aggressive or pushy, and don't let your impatience cause you to send a message that gets you disqualified because it's too pushy or too aggressive, or communicate some frustration or whatever the case may be. So be patient, but don't be afraid to follow up as well and be assertive. And of course, along those lines, then keep trying, right? Don't let rejection discourage you from submitting more proposals. The more proposals you submit, if you're taking the time, if you're just copying and pasting and blasting out proposals, then the more proposals you submit isn't going to make you any better. But if you're trying to follow all the stuff we're talking about here, and you're asking for feedback and all of these things, the more you do this, the better you're going to get at it. And I don't know you, but I'm confident that if you really give this a good faith effort and you go through all of this stuff and really try to do it, the more you do it, you're just eventually going to get someone to hire you. You're eventually going to get it right. So just keep cracking away at it, and it'll come. And remember, ultimately, timing is just one piece of the puzzle when it comes to getting your Upwork proposals accepted. But by being aware of the client's schedule, following up, doing all the things that we talked about, you can increase your chances of standing out from all the other proposals that they receive and getting hired on Upwork. Reason number 7 your Upwork proposals aren't getting accepted it can be simple competition. We kind of all know competition can be fierce on Upwork with dozens of freelancers vying for the same job. So it's important to understand that competition, how fierce it can be, and how it can affect a client's decision to accept a proposal, and ultimately what you can do to be able to compete and stand out from all the other freelancers vying for the same job. One way to think about the competition is to, again, put yourself in the client's shoes. Let's say you're looking for a freelancer to design a website. So you post a job and within minutes you receive 20 proposals from different freelancers. And each proposal promises great design, a fast turnaround. They're all making a bunch of promises telling you how great they are. How would you ultimately choose? Just put yourself in the client's shoes for a second. If you have that many proposals, and let's say they're all, pretty good, they're all seem very similar, how are you going to decide which one? What criteria are you going to use? It's a little bit harder than you might think. And so from your side, it might seem obvious why someone should hire you, but if you put yourself in the client's shoes and realize that they're inundated with all these proposals, you can start to see how it can be a little tricky, and they might literally just pick someone at random. And so you kind of have to figure out what you can do to get them to fixate on you over all of these other people. And so there's a number of factors that can determine who a client ultimately ends up hiring. So reviews are obviously one of them. If you have a lot of positive reviews and a high job success score and high ratings and all that, then that can help you to stand out from the crowd. This, of course, just comes down to you getting hired and you doing a good job and building up your profile and asking clients for reviews after completing a job. That's very important. So that's something you want to always make sure and do. Upwork will actually pay attention if you're completing jobs and the client's happy, but they're not leaving reviews, and you get enough clients that don't leave reviews, that'll actually work against you as well. So you want to make sure and ask for those reviews after you complete a job so that you get that in. And especially if they're happy, then you want that positive review on your profile. Of course, your portfolio. A good portfolio can make a big difference in the client's decision-making process. So again, that's why making sure your portfolio is not empty and you put only your best work in it is really, really important, because you want to make sure that the clients have something they can look at, and everything they look at is your absolute best work. So it's very much a case of quality over quantity within reason. So it would be, you want to at least have 4 to 5 things in there at a minimum. Make sure they're your best work, and then after that, you should really only add the absolute best things to your portfolio. Next is customization. So we've talked a little bit about this, about researching the client, understanding their brand, their voice, kind of how they communicate, the industry they're in, etc. If you take the time to do all that and customize your proposal and show the client that you understand them, their project, their industry, their business, their needs, that probably more than anything is going to help you to stand out, at least specifically in your proposal. And you still have the portfolio and reviews and so forth, but in your actual proposal, that kind of thing is going to help you really stand out, because half the proposals they receive are just going to be blanket copy and paste proposals anyway. So you'll immediately stand out above those. And then there'll be probably another 30 to 40% of the freelancers who are being lazy and they just read the job description quickly and they responded and didn't necessarily customize it in detail. Whereas if you take the time to really lean in and customize your proposal, that's really going to make you stand out. So take the time to do that. Read the job description carefully, look up their business, try to learn as much about them as you can, and tailor your proposal accordingly. And of course, you have to temper all of this based off of what kind of job you're bidding on. So if you're bidding on a $50 project, maybe you won't take as much time. But if you're bidding on a $5,000 project, you should really take the time to figure all of this out to get hired for that job. So again, you have to temper it, but customizing is another way that you can really stand out with a client. And as I mentioned before, personality. A friendly and professional demeanor, that can go a long way. Communicating your personality, and maybe they resonate with your personality. That can be something that can kind of shortcut all of the other decision making. So don't be afraid to show your personality and kind of show them a little bit of who you are. That can allow them to connect with you on a human level. And oftentimes when a client does that, that's who they're going to ultimately go with, is the person that they connect with on a human level, because it's just a trust factor for them. So all the other stuff, reviews and portfolio and that sort of stuff, it's a little bit more logical, whereas that human connection is an emotional thing, and people make decisions based off of emotion. We buy based off of emotion, justify off of on logic, or justify with logic. You may have heard that before, but that really is the truth. So that personal connection can be the thing that helps you to get them to emotionally connect with you and make a decision to hire you. So those are some factors that can determine who a client hires. Now let's talk about some different tips for being able to stand out and compete in such a competitive environment. So number one is being specific. Specificity really goes a long way to build trust and credibility. So instead of promising great design or fast turnaround time, you can be specific about what you can offer. So, for example, you could say, I have experience designing responsive websites using WordPress and can have your website ready within 2 weeks. So specifying 2 weeks as opposed to I can have it done fast, that specificity is going to stand out more to the client. So be specific in the things that you're saying. Again, make it real. Don't say 2 weeks if you can't do it in 2 weeks. But wherever you can and you are confident in it, be as specific as possible. You can also offer something extra. So just think about what you can offer that other freelancers might not be offering. So for example, if you're a graphic designer, you could offer to create their social media graphics for the new website. So let's say the job is for building a new website and you're like, okay, I can do that, but I can also, or designing a new website. And it's like, okay, I can do that, but I can also, I'll throw in your social media graphics or something along those lines. You can put that in your proposal. So you can offer something extra that helps you to stand apart and makes a better offer. So again, upping the value of what you're offering can help you to get hired over others who simply aren't doing that. You could also offer a unique solution. So instead of just simply fulfilling what the client wants and just doing what you have to do, you could offer some sort of unique solution or suggestion that can help them achieve their goals in a more effective way. This is one of the things I love to do in proposals is when I read, I actually will look for job descriptions where the client is saying something that I know is wrong, as the wrong way of doing things, because then in the proposal, I can be the one to say, hey, you shouldn't do it that way. And, that's not going to work with every client, but for a lot of clients, having someone that will tell them that stands out immediately and immediately creates trust. I can't tell you how many clients by doing that. So again, if you can find a certain way to offer a unique solution or suggestion, etc., that can be a way to stand out and create a connection with the client and get them to hire you over everybody else. We talked about showing your personality. Again, that's what you want to do here. So don't be afraid to let your personality show. Provide social proof. Have you received positive feedback from past clients? If so, include those testimonials, reviews in your proposal to show them that you have a proven track record. Don't just assume that they're going to see it on your profile. In all of this, don't assume that a client is going to go looking for something, because chances are they're not. So if you want them to see something, you need to kind of put it in their face. And in this case, in your proposal, if you have that social proof, get your best testimonials or your best results that you've gotten for clients and put those in your proposal. As long as they're relevant to what the client is after, then that's going to go a long way towards getting you hired. Following up, we sort of mentioned this already, but it's a really good way to remind clients of your interest and stand out and all of that. So don't be afraid to do that. Another one you can do is just to create a video introduction. So while most freelancers are going to submit a written proposal, you can create a video introduction. You can make it a private video or a hidden video on YouTube, or maybe put it on Vimeo or something like that, and create a video introduction where you introduce yourself specifically to that client. You use their name in the video. You say, hey, Pete, really took a look at your project, really excited to work on it. I understand you need X, Y, and Z. I've done blah, 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 A, B, and C, and I really think I'd be a good fit for this project because of 1, 2, 3, etc. And you create a video like that. It could be 30 seconds. It could be filmed on your phone. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy. I know I had a client of mine who had created several 7-figure tech companies, and one of the things that they did that really helped them to boost their retention rates is every time someone signed up for their service, their tech service was ultimately what it was, they would create a short 30-second video saying, "Hey, Todd, thanks for signing up for our program. Look forward to working with you in the future, blah, blah, blah." And the customers and clients absolutely loved it. So a video introduction like that can be an easy, simple thing that you can do. I'm not just talking on your profile, definitely on your profile, but also in the actual proposal itself where you link off to a Vimeo or YouTube video that has an introduction. So that can be a really powerful thing that you can do. Another thing you can do is just offer a free sample. I think I've alluded to this before, but if you have a relevant skill, consider offering a free sample of your work to the client so they can see what it is that you can do. So maybe it's a part of their project. If they want you to build a website, maybe you can do a free sample where you do a mock-up for their homepage. And if they like that, then that would go a long way towards you getting hired. So, you got to be careful about how far you go with that and how much you putting too much into a client that's never going to hire you, or if you're bidding on a bunch of these and you're running yourself ragged trying to make these and so forth, then depending on what it is, that might not be the right approach for you. But still, it's an option if all else fails and you're not getting any of your proposals accepted. You kind of want to try everything. This is something that you can do. And ultimately, as I mentioned earlier, when you're in a competitive environment, an environment that's as competitive as Upwork is, it can be really tough to stand out. But by implementing some of the things that we've outlined here, getting creative, thinking outside the box, doing things that other people and other freelancers aren't willing to do, you can increase your chances of getting your proposals accepted and having success on Upwork, having success in your freelance business. I'll just say this: creativity, thinking outside the box, and doing things that other freelancers aren't willing to do, really in your entire freelance career, those are gonna be themes that you're gonna find are always advantages. So don't be afraid to think those things through and do those things if they make sense for you in the particular situation that you're in. Reason number 8, lack of relevant portfolio samples. And this is very common. It's one of the common reasons why your proposals may not be getting accepted. And if just imagine that you're a client looking to hire, let's say, a graphic designer to create a new logo for your business, and you receive several proposals from different freelancers, all with varying rates and experience levels. However, one of them stands out because they included a portfolio sample that showcases their logo designs for other businesses that happen to be in the same industry as yours. By doing that, that freelancer has demonstrated that they understand the style and the tone that works for your industry, which makes them a more appealing candidate for the project. So how can you fix this issue if you don't have any relevant portfolio samples to showcase in your proposal? Well, here's a few tips. First off, again, just create portfolio samples specifically for the job. If you don't have any that are relevant to that job, go out and make some. And that's going to go a long way, not only towards you getting relevant portfolio samples, which matters, but demonstrating to the client that you're willing to put in the work and the initiative and that you really want the job. So that can go a long way. And now, because you know what job you're making the portfolio sample for, you can really get specific around their brand, their style, their tone, their industry, etc., and have a portfolio item that really hits at the heart of what they're after. Now, again, it depends on what you do. If we're talking about a logo, you could probably do that pretty quick and it'd be okay. If we're talking about, a full-blown 30-page, website, then maybe that's not realistic. So you have to keep all of that in mind. But if you can, that's a really simple way for you to not only get a relevant portfolio item, but also make a really good impression with the client. Of course, you can use personal projects if you don't have any past client work. This is one of the main ways that I would go about getting stuff for your portfolio is doing things for a family member or a friend or whatever the case may be. So you can use those personal projects and put them into your portfolio. I would recommend anybody that you do that with, essentially the deal, if you're going to do the work for free, just tell them the deal is that you'll do the project for them for free, but you want a review from them. You want a testimonial from them when it's over. I would even maybe go so far as to tell them you want a video testimonial. And that's kind of the deal, that you're essentially working for that testimonial so that you get what you want out of it. Of course, you can create your own portfolio samples, as we've talked about. So if you don't have anything in there, create your own. Something is better than nothing, and nothing says the item is in your portfolio. You have to be client work. The example I always use on this is because he's so famous, is Leonardo da Vinci. Most of his famous works, the stuff that you would think of when you think of today, outside of, say, the Mona Lisa and some of those things, but a lot of the stuff that he's famous for, those weren't commissioned works. They were doodles in his notebook, or they were what they called studies back then, where he was essentially he would do a study of the human anatomy. And the whole point behind it was, him learning more and getting better at understanding the human anatomy so he can create more realistic paintings. But it was also to show clients, kind of demonstrate his process to clients and show them, the thought and the effort that he put into his paintings and what he did. So again, that was the main way that he would get commissioned works, and he's considered one of the greatest painters in human history. So again, it doesn't have to be stuff you've done for clients. It can just be stuff that you do, and if you don't have anything else, again, something is better than nothing. Showcasing transferable skills. So again, if you have skills that are a close match, they're maybe not an exact match, but they're a close match for what the client is after, then you can kind of point to those, but you have to make the connection. So you have to talk about the skill, but then you have to talk about why that can transfer to their specific project and really make that case. So you have to be a little bit persuasive in that sense if you're going to do that. And I kind of alluded to this with Da Vinci, but showcasing your process. So instead of just showcasing the final product, you can also consider including your process in your portfolio or in your proposal, etc., because that can give clients a better understanding of your workflow and your approach. And it's better than having nothing in your portfolio. And in some ways, it might even be better, because now they kind of get to go behind the scenes a little bit and see the inner working of how you do what you do. And if they like what they see, that can kind of sometimes just trump everything else, where they're like, oh, I like this approach. I want to take this specific approach to how this project is done. So don't be afraid to showcase your process. Again, that was something that Da Vinci and other artists of that time, and really even still today, is something that they did a lot of in order to get commissioned work. And ultimately, remember that what clients want is they want to see that you have the relevant experience and skills that they need for their project before they hire you. So by doing all of this, showcasing relevant portfolio samples, you're demonstrating that you have that experience, you have those skills, and that you are the best person for the job. And ultimately, something is better than nothing. So create samples for yourself, family members, friends, showcase your transferable skills, showcase your process, whatever you have to do to get something in your portfolio and get something in front of your client that is persuasive. It's compelling. It makes a good argument for you. You don't want to leave it up to chance or the client's goodwill to just figure it out. The more work they have to do, the more effort they have to put into hiring you, the less likely they're going to be to hire you. So give them compelling reasons to hire you, and more of your proposals will start getting accepted on Upwork. But I want to talk about an even bigger problem that could be hurting your chances of getting hired on Upwork. And it comes down to Upwork's algorithm, which admittedly is a bit of a mystery because Upwork doesn't really like to talk about it. But it's not impossible to figure out if you really understand kind of how Upwork has to work and how its algorithm has to work. then it can make a little bit more sense. And ultimately, the algorithm is designed to match clients with freelancers who have the skills and experience they're looking for their specific project. So the name of the game, really, if you want to rank higher on Upwork and get more clients, is you need a coherent strategy for how to build your profile and your job history by the jobs you choose to bid on. You need a coherent strategy that's based on a deep understanding of how that algorithm works, because Upwork is a highly algorithm-driven site. And so once you understand the algorithm and you're able to put together that coherent strategy, everything just kind of starts to work. And not doing this, not understanding the algorithm, not having a coherent strategy, it's easily the biggest mistake that I see Upworkers make, and the thing that holds most back from getting the success that they want on Upwork and in their freelance careers. And so ultimately, that's why I wrote my book called Upwork Essentials. Inside, I reveal the exact strategy that I discovered and used that helped me to get my first clients on Upwork. And I've since taught to tens of thousands of other Upworkers and helped them land their first clients and grow their profiles and go on to have successful careers and so forth. So if you're serious about making Upwork work for you, in my opinion, this book is a must read. Right now, you can also get $50 in bonuses when you order the book on Amazon. All the details on that are at johnmorrisonline.com/essentials. I'll also drop a link in the description as well. All right, that'll do it for this video. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments. If you like the video, I'd appreciate a like. And if you want to see future videos when they get released, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. We'll talk to you next time.